The first sensation Lyra registered was warmth, human warmth radiating from beneath her like thermal waves from sun-baked stone. The second was the steady rhythm of a heartbeat against her cheek, strong and controlled, despite the circumstances. The third was the sudden sharp realization that she had made a catastrophic cultural error. Her eyes snapped open to find herself sprawled across Commander Garrett, Holloway's bare chest, her lavender skin stark against his tan complexion. Early morning sunlight filtered through the bedroom window, casting golden rays across what should have been a professional employer-employee relationship, and was now decidedly, horrifically something else entirely. The commander's gray eyes were already open, fixed on her, with the kind of measured calm that spoke of extensive combat experience and rigid self-control. No panic, no shock, just assessment, cold and thorough, as if she were a tactical situation requiring immediate evaluation. Lyra's head crest flushed, deep violet with embarrassment. In the span of 3 heartbeats, she rolled off him with the fluid grace inherent to her species, landing in a crouch at the bedside. Her mind raced through Etherian protocols for catastrophic diplomatic incidents. This qualified. This absolutely qualified. "Commander Holloway," she began, her melodious voice carrying undertones of genuine distress. "I must offer immediate and profound apologies for this situation." He sat up slowly, pulling the sheet across his waist with deliberate precision. His movements were economical, controlled. Everything about Garrett Holloway spoke of discipline earned through decades of military service. At 45, his body still carried the lean strength of an active warrior, though his face bore the weathered lines of someone who had seen too much and survived anyway. "Explanation first," he said, his voice graveled from sleep but carrying unmistakable authority. "Apologies after. Why were you in my bed unclothed, using me as apparently some kind of thermal blanket?" The directness was so perfectly human that Lyra almost smiled despite her mortification. No diplomatic dancing, no polite evasions, just the blunt truth that soldiers preferred when situations went sideways. She straightened, forcing herself to meet his gaze despite every Etherian instinct screaming at her to demonstrate submissive postures. "My species, the Etherians, are communal sleepers. We share body heat to conserve energy during rest periods. It is deeply encoded in our biology, particularly when we sense someone sleeping alone." She paused, her crest rippling with discomfort. "After completing my evening duties, I detected your sleeping form, and my instincts overrode my conscious awareness of human cultural boundaries. I should have explained this potential complication when I accepted this position." Garrett's expression didn't shift, but something flickered in those storm-gray eyes. Recognition, perhaps. Understanding born from operating in foreign territories where cultural landmines lurked in every interaction. "So this was biological imperative, not conscious choice," he stated more than asked. "Correct, though that does not excuse the violation of your personal space and dignity." He studied her for a long moment, and Lyra found herself subjected to the kind of thorough analysis she'd only experienced from senior Etherian military commanders. This human had spent a lifetime reading people's situations, threats. She could practically feel him cataloging every detail, her posture, her physiological responses, the authenticity of her distress. "Understood," he finally said, his tone carrying neither judgment nor approval. "Simple acknowledgement of facts. Going forward, you sleep in your designated quarters. Door closed. No exceptions to that protocol. Are we clear?" "Completely clear, Commander." "Garrett, he corrected, standing with the unconscious grace of a practiced warrior. He moved to his closet, retrieving a well-worn Marine Corps t-shirt and sweatpants. "If we're going to navigate cross-species cultural differences, we might as well start with dropping the ranks. I'm retired anyway." Lyra nodded, gathering her uniform from where she'd folded it neatly on his dresser the night before. The domestic gesture now seemed absurdly intimate given the circumstances. "Then you should call me Lyra. Not miss, not ma'am, just Lyra." "Fair enough." He pulled on his shirt, and Lyra caught herself noting the efficient, practiced movements. Everything this man did carried the mark of military precision. "Now get dressed and meet me in the kitchen in 20 minutes. We're going to establish ground rules over breakfast, and you're going to tell me everything about Etherian customs that might lead to more mornings like this one." As Lyra slipped from his room, she felt the weight of his gaze following her. Not predatory, not inappropriate, watchful. Assessing. This was a man who had survived by paying attention to details, and she had just become a detail requiring careful monitoring. 20 minutes later, Lyra entered the kitchen to find Garrett already there, coffee brewing, his posture relaxed but alert. The house itself reflected its owner's sparse and organized every item serving a clear purpose. No clutter, no unnecessary decoration. The home of a man who had learned to travel light through life. You mentioned wanting to learn human cooking techniques, he said without preamble, gesturing to the counter where ingredients were already laid out. This morning seems like a good time to start. Ever made pancakes? Lyra approached the counter, studying the flour, eggs, milk, and mysterious powders with scientific interest. I have reviewed the process in your cultural databases, but I have not attempted practical application. Theory versus execution, Garrett observed, moving beside her with practiced ease. Combat planning is worthless if you can't pull the trigger when it counts. Cooking's the same. I'll walk you through it. For the next 30 minutes, Lyra found herself receiving instruction with the same crisp efficiency Garrett had undoubtedly used training Marines. Precise measurements, proper mixing techniques, temperature control. He demonstrated once, then stepped back to let her execute, correcting only when necessary and doing so without judgment. You're mixing too aggressively, he noted as she attacked the batter with focused intensity. You'll overdevelop the gluten and end up with rubber instead of food. Cooking requires knowing when to apply force and when to use finesse. Lyra adjusted her technique, noting how the human's approach to even this simple task reflected deeper philosophical principles. Control, discipline, the application of appropriate force to achieve desired outcomes. When she finally poured the first pancake onto the heated griddle, Garrett's subtle nod of approval carried more weight than elaborate praise might have from others. Bubble formation on the surface, he instructed. That's your indicator to flip. Don't second guess, don't hesitate. Commit to the action. She flipped the pancake with perhaps more vigor than necessary, sending it airborne for a heart-stopping moment before it landed perfectly back in the pan. Garrett's lips twitched, the closest thing to a smile she'd seen from him. Solid recovery, he deadpanned. By the time they sat down to eat, Lyra had produced a respectable stack of golden brown pancakes. Garrett ate with the same focused efficiency he applied to everything else, but she noticed he finished every bite on his plate. In Etherian culture, consuming offered food completely was a sign of respect. Perhaps humans shared that particular value. These are excellent, he said, setting down his fork with precision. You learn quickly. That's a valuable trait. Lyra's crest rippled with pleasure at the compliment, then flushed again as she remembered her mission parameters. The time had come for honesty, partial at least. Commander Garrett, there is something I must disclose about my presence here. His eyes sharpened instantly, that combat alertness flooding back. I'm listening. I am not simply a domestic worker seeking employment. I am a cultural liaison officer for the Etherian Diplomatic Corps, specifically assigned to study human military culture and psychology. She held his gaze, refusing to look away despite the intensity of his stare. I chose your file from among thousands of candidates because your service record and current circumstances presented optimal research parameters. The silence that followed stretched like drawn wire, taut and potentially explosive. Garrett's expression remained neutral, but Lyra's empathic abilities picked up the flash of anger, quickly suppressed, and beneath it, something more complex. Betrayal, perhaps, or simply the wariness of a man who had learned the hard way that trust came with a price. So, this is a research assignment, he said finally, his tone carefully controlled. I'm a test subject, a case study. Initially, yes. Lyra admitted, knowing that anything less than complete honesty now would destroy whatever foundation they might build. But I must also confess that I chose your file for reasons beyond pure research value. Your psychological profile, your experiences, the way you have carried your burdens alone. These things resonated with me on a level I did not anticipate and cannot fully explain. That's convenient. It is truthful. She leaned forward, her crest flattening in the Etherian gesture of sincere petition. My species possesses empathic abilities. We sense emotional resonance in others. When I reviewed your file, I felt something I have only experienced once before. Recognition. The acknowledgement of shared pain between warriors who have survived when others did not. That landed, She saw it in the minute tightening around his eyes, the slight shift in his breathing. Whatever walls Garrett Holloway maintained, she had just found a crack. What would you know about that? The question emerged quiet, almost gentle, but Lyra heard the challenge within it. 3 years ago, I led a diplomatic mission to negotiate peace on Tarsus 7. We had assurances of safe passage from both parties. Her voice remained steady, but her crest betrayed her with trembling movement. Extremist elements ambushed our convoy. I was the only survivor. 7 colleagues, friends died because I trusted the wrong intelligence and led them into a kill zone. Garrett's expression shifted, hardening into something she recognized. The face warriors wore when they looked into mirrors and saw ghosts staring back. You carry it with you, he stated. Every day. Every hour. Every mission I have undertaken since then, I see their faces. I hear their final transmissions. I wonder if different choices might have saved them. And you thought studying me would help you understand your own guilt, Garrett concluded. No. Lyra met his eyes, fully letting him see the truth in her own. I thought perhaps 2 warriors who understand this particular burden might be able to help each other bear it more effectively. The silence that followed was different from before. Not hostile, contemplative. Garrett rose, clearing their plates with mechanical precision, and Lyra recognized the action for what it was. Processing time, the need to create physical distance while his mind worked through implications. When he finally spoke, his back was still to her as he rinsed dishes in the sink. I lost my wife 2 years ago, cancer. It was slow and it was brutal, and I watched every second of it because that was my duty as her husband. He set the last plate in the drying rack with careful control. After she died, I realized I'd spent so many years at war, so many deployments away from home, that I'd failed to give her the life she deserved. That's a different kind of survivor's guilt, but it's just as heavy. I am sorry for your loss. Don't be sorry. Be honest about why you're really here and what you actually want from me. Lyra rose, moving to stand where he could see her peripheral vision without invading his space. I want to learn how human warriors process trauma, how they maintain honor when they feel they have failed, how they continue serving when doubt haunts every decision. And selfishly, I want to understand if someone like me, someone who carries the weight of the dead, can ever find peace. Garrett turned to face her fully, and for the first time since that morning's catastrophic awakening, she saw something other than wary control in his expression. Recognition, perhaps, or the beginning of respect. That's honest enough, he said quietly. Here are my terms. You want to study human military culture and psychology, fine. I'll teach you. But this goes both ways. I want to understand Etherian customs abilities, whatever makes your people tick. If we're going to navigate living in the same space without war incidents like this morning, we need mutual comprehension. Agreed. And Lyra, he held her gaze with the full weight of command authority. We do this with complete honesty between us. No hidden agendas, no classified protocols you conveniently forget to mention. You feel something through those empathic abilities of yours, you tell me. I notice something off in your behavior, I call it out. We are clear, Commander Garrett. Just Garrett, he reminded her. We're partners in this arrangement now. Partners use first names. The days that followed established a rhythm between them, careful and precise as drill formations. Garrett treated their arrangement like a military exchange program, establishing protocols for shared spaces, communication standards, and mutual respect for cultural boundaries. When Lyra's instincts drove her toward communal behaviors, organizing his weapon collection according to Etherian efficiency matrices that left him momentarily panicked, when he couldn't locate his preferred rifle, he corrected her with the patience of a seasoned instructor, rather than anger. These aren't just tools, he explained, walking her through his methodical organization system. Each weapon has a specific purpose, a specific deployment scenario. I need to know by muscle memory alone where to reach in the dark. Organization isn't about efficiency, it's about survival reflexes. Lyra recalibrated, learning to see his systems not as illogical human quirks, but as the hard-won wisdom of a man who had survived by mastering details. In return, she shared Etherian perspectives. When nightmares woke Garrett at 0300, his shouts echoing through the house, she didn't retreat to her quarters. Instead, she sat outside his door, humming the low, resonant frequencies of Etherian calming songs. He never acknowledged her presence directly, but the nightmares became less frequent. Small victories, she had learned, mattered more than dramatic triumphs. 8 days after the morning incident, Garrett found her studying tactical manuals in his home office, cross-referencing human military philosophy with Etherian combat doctrine. "You're serious about this," he observed, leaning against the doorframe. "About understanding human warriors." Lyra glanced up from her notes. "Completely. Your species approaches conflict with a fascinating combination of brutal pragmatism and ethical constraints that my people find paradoxical. We're complicated that way." He moved into the room, gesturing toward the books she had spread across his desk. "But you're not just reading doctrine. You're looking for patterns, connections. Why? Because isolated facts mean nothing. It is the relationships between concepts that reveal truth." She tapped one of the manuals. "Your Marine Corps teaches that leadership is earned through example, not rank. That honor matters more than survival. That the unit is more valuable than the individual. These principles seem designed to create warriors who will sacrifice themselves without hesitation." "That's one interpretation," Garrett acknowledged, settling into the chair across from her. "Another is that we're creating warriors who understand that some things matter more than personal survival. That's not the same as having a death wish." "Is it not?" Lyra challenged gently. "How many times have you placed yourself at risk because duty demanded it, even when survival was unlikely?" His gray eyes studied her with that unsettling intensity she was beginning to recognize. "Every combat deployment, every mission that mattered. You do the job because it needs doing, regardless of personal cost. That's not seeking death. That's accepting risk as part of the profession. And afterward, when you survive and others do not, how do human warriors process that?" The question hung between them, sharp and precise as a blade. Garrett was quiet for a long moment, his gaze distant. When he finally spoke, his voice carried the weight of hard-earned wisdom. "Some don't. They drink themselves to death, eat their sidearm, disappear into bottles or pills or anger, until there's nothing left of who they used to be." He paused. "Others find purpose in the survival. They honor the fallen by living well, by continuing the mission, by making the sacrifice mean something. Which category do you fall into?" "I'm working on figuring that out," he admitted with surprising honesty. "Some days are better than others." Lyra felt something shift in her perception of this complicated human. Beneath the control and discipline lived a man still fighting his own battles, still searching for peace that might never come. She recognized that struggle intimately. "Perhaps," she suggested carefully, "we could help each other with that particular mission." "Perhaps," Garrett echoed, and the smallest hint of a genuine smile touched his weathered features. "But first you're going to help me prep dinner. If I'm teaching you human culture, you're learning to cook more than just breakfast." The following Saturday, Garrett suggested an excursion that surprised Lararo with its personal significance. "There's a place I visit monthly," he said over morning coffee. "A memorial site in the mountains about an hour's drive. I'd like you to come with me if you're interested in understanding human customs around honoring the dead." Lyra's crest rippled with both interest and trepidation. Grave sites and memorials in Etherian culture were deeply sacred spaces. Being invited to such a location represented profound trust. "I would be honored to accompany you." The drive through Colorado's mountain roads revealed a side of Garrett that Lyra had only glimpsed before. He spoke of his wife, Sarah, with quiet affection. How they'd met during his first deployment cycle, her patient endurance through countless separations, her strength during his darkest periods after particularly brutal missions. The words came slowly, carefully selected, but they came. For a man who generally communicated in tactical brevity, this openness represented a significant gesture. The memorial itself was not a traditional cemetery, but a rocky outcropping overlooking a valley marked only by a simple stone cairn. As they climbed the final approach, Garrett's pace slowed his breathing, becoming more controlled. "My old team and I used to train in these mountains," he explained, reaching the cairn and kneeling beside it. After Sarah died, I started coming here. It felt right somehow, closer to them than any formal memorial." He produced a small flask from his jacket, taking a measured sip before pouring a small amount onto the ground in each cardinal direction. The gesture was ritualistic, practiced, carrying weight beyond the simple action. Lyra watched in respectful silence, her empathic senses picking up the complicated tangle of grief, guilt, love, and determination radiating from him. This was a man performing a duty as sacred as any combat mission, honoring those who could no longer be honored by anyone else. "Would you like me to perform an Etherian ritual?" she asked softly. "We have ceremonies for honoring fallen warriors that might complement your own practices." Garrett looked up at her, something vulnerable and hopeful flickering in his expression. "I'd like that." Lyra knelt opposite him, the cairn between them. She closed her eyes, focusing her empathic abilities outward in the way her people had practiced for millennia. When she spoke, her voice took on harmonics that human vocal cords could never achieve, resonating with frequencies that bypassed conscious thought and spoke directly to emotion. The Etherian ritual of honored dead was not meant to summon spirits or provide false comfort. It was designed to help the living feel the presence of the fallen, to sense across the barrier of death that those who had gone before were not truly gone while memory remained. Garrett's breathing hitched as the ritual took effect. Through their growing empathic connection, Lyra carefully guided his awareness, letting him feel what she sensed. The echo of love from Sarah, pride in the man he had become despite his grief. The brotherhood of his fallen team, their satisfaction that he had survived to continue their shared mission. When she finally opened her eyes, tears streaked Garrett's weathered face. He made no attempt to hide them, no effort to maintain his usual rigid control. Here in this place of remembrance, he allowed himself the vulnerability of genuine emotion. "Thank you," he whispered, his voice rough with feeling. "I've carried them alone for so long. I'd forgotten what it felt like to have them close." "They are always close," Lyra said gently. "Warriors who die with honor never truly leave. They live in those who remember them, in the principles they upheld, in the missions that continue because of their sacrifice." Garrett nodded slowly, wiping his face with the back of his hand in an unconsciously human gesture. When he looked at Lyra again, something had fundamentally changed between them. The walls of professional distance had thinned, revealing the possibility of genuine connection beneath. They sat together in comfortable silence as the sun moved across the sky, two warriors sharing the weight of their dead. Finally, as afternoon shadows lengthened, Garrett stood, offering his hand to help Lyra rise. "I meant what I said before," he told her, his grip warm and steady, "about partners helping each other with difficult missions. I think maybe we're better at that than either of us expected." "Perhaps," Lyra agreed, feeling her crest flush with warmth that had nothing to do with embarrassment. "Though I should warn you, Garrett, Etherians form strong emotional bonds through shared experience, particularly experiences involving vulnerability and trust. You may find me becoming rather attached." His expression softened into something almost like genuine affection. "After what we've shared today, I think maybe I can handle that." The drive back was different from the journey out. Easier, more natural. They talked about small things, comfortable silences, punctuating easy conversation. By the time they reached Garrett's home, full dark had settled over Denver's suburbs, stars brilliant in the clear mountain air. "I have something I'd like to share with you," Lyra said as they entered the house. "An Etherian practice that might help with the burden you carry. It's called the Ritual of Shared Essence." Garrett's eyebrow rose slightly. "That sounds potentially complicated." "It is both ancient and sacred among my people. The ritual creates or strengthens empathic bonds between participants, allowing them to literally share emotional burdens to lighten the weight each carries alone." She paused, gauging his reaction. "It requires trust, vulnerability, and physical proximity. I would not suggest it if I did not believe we had developed sufficient foundation." He studied her for a long moment, that analytical gaze reading layers of meaning. "And you think this would help me? I think it would help us both. The burden of survivor's guilt is crushing when carried alone. Shared between warriors who understand it becomes bearable." Her crest rippled with nervous anticipation. "But I must warn you, the ritual involves physical contact and creates permanent empathic connections. This is not something to undertake lightly." "Permanent. Once our life forces intertwine through the ritual, we will always sense each other's emotional states, particularly intense experiences. It is how Etherian bonded pairs support each other across distance and circumstance." She met his eyes directly. "It is a significant commitment." Garrett was quiet, thinking through implications with the thoroughness she had come to expect. When he finally nodded, the decision carried the weight of command commitment. Show me. Lyra prepared the ritual with practiced precision, creating sacred space in Garrett's living room. Candles cast dancing shadows across walls as she arranged ceremonial incense, the sweet scent filling the air with exotic fragrances. From her quarters, she retrieved the ceremonial powder, shimmering with bioluminescent properties unique to Etherian biochemistry. You will need to remove your shirt, she instructed, her voice taking on the formal tones reserved for sacred practices. The patterns must be drawn directly on skin to create proper resonance. Garrett complied without hesitation, revealing the lean, scarred torso of a warrior who had tested his body's limits repeatedly. Lyra's fingers trembled slightly as she began applying the luminescent powder, tracing intricate patterns across his chest according to ancient formulae. The designs represented the intertwining of life forces, the sharing of burdens, the creation of bonds that transcended individual existence. Her touch was gentle, reverent, but even through the formality of ritual, she felt Garrett's heart rate increase, his breathing deepen. Through her developing empathic connection, she sensed his awareness of her proximity, the warmth of her hands on his skin, the intimacy of the moment that transcended its sacred purpose. The patterns represent the flow of shared essence, she explained softly, her fingers tracing swirling designs that glowed against his skin. Each line connects our life forces, creating pathways for emotional transference and mutual support. When the patterns were complete, Lyra positioned herself behind Garrett, guiding him to lean back against her. The physical contact sent ripples through her empathic senses as their energies began to harmonize. Now we synchronize our breathing and open ourselves to full empathic resonance, she murmured against his ear. You may feel overwhelming sensations as our barriers dissolve. Trust the process. Trust me. As their breathing aligned, the powder began to pulse with increasing intensity. Garrett's consciousness flooded into Lyra's awareness, and simultaneously she felt herself merging into his perceptions. The experience was overwhelming, intimate, beyond anything physical could achieve. She felt his grief for Sarah, the hollow ache that never quite healed. The crushing weight of teammates lost their faces, haunting every quiet moment. But she also felt his strength, his determination, the iron core of honor that kept him functioning when lesser men would have shattered. And through their connection, Garrett felt her own burdens. The screams of her diplomatic team as they died. The crushing responsibility of leadership decisions gone catastrophically wrong. The loneliness of carrying guilt that her own people could not fully comprehend. The powder reached peak luminescence, and suddenly the barriers between them dissolved completely. For one perfect eternal moment, they existed as a single consciousness, sharing everything, hiding nothing. Two warriors recognizing each other with perfect clarity across the artificial boundaries of species and culture. When the ritual finally released them, both were trembling with the intensity of connection. Lyra's arms remained around Garrett, holding him as he processed the enormity of what they had just experienced. I feel you, he whispered, his voice filled with wonder. Even now, I can sense your emotions, your presence in my mind. And I feel you. Lyra confirmed, her crest glowing with the after effects of the ritual. We are bonded now, Garrett, permanently and completely. Your burdens are mine to help carry. My pain is yours to help ease. He turned in her arms, facing her with an expression of such raw vulnerability that it stole her breath. I haven't felt this connected to any since Sarah died. I'd forgotten what it was like to not be alone inside my own head. You are not alone now. You will never be alone again. What happened next felt inevitable, natural as gravity. Garrett's hand rose to cup her face, his calloused fingers gentle against her lavender skin. Lyra leaned into the touch, her large eyes reflecting the glow of ceremonial candles, and something deeper, more profound. When he kissed her, the empathic bond blazed with shared sensation. She felt his desire mirrored by her own, his tenderness matched by her careful passion. This was not the desperate coupling of physical need, but the sacred union of warriors who had found understanding in each other's brokenness. They made love slowly, carefully, two damaged souls, treating each other with the reverence reserved for precious, fragile things. Through their bond, every touch, every sensation was amplified, shared, experienced from both perspectives simultaneously. The glowing patterns on Garrett's chest left trails of light as they moved together, marking the moment when two separate lives became permanently intertwined. Afterward, as they lay tangled in sheets that now bore traces of luminescent powder, Lyra traced the fading patterns on Garrett's chest with gentle fingers. "Among my people," she said softly, "physical intimacy following the ritual of shared essence is considered the beginning of permanent pair bonding. It creates the possibility of biological compatibility of children who carry both bloodlines." Garrett's hand stilled where it had been stroking her head crest. "Children human and Etherian. It is rare but documented. The biological requirements are complex, but the empathic bond we have created significantly increases compatibility." She met his eyes, needing him to understand the magnitude of what they had done. If conception occurs, the pregnancy will last only 6 weeks by Etherian biology. The accelerated gestation is necessary because hybrid development requires enormous energy input. That's fast, extraordinarily so by human standards. Her crest rippled with nervous anticipation. "Garrett, I need you to understand that what we have just done was not casual for my people. I have bound my life to yours. If you do not wish for that level of commitment, if this was simply physical need, I must know now before the bond fully sets." He was quiet for a long moment, his gray eyes searching her face with characteristic thoroughness. When he spoke, his voice carried absolute conviction. "I told you before, I don't do things halfway. If we're bonded, then we're bonded. If there are consequences, we face them together." His hand resumed its gentle stroking of her crest, the gesture becoming familiar, intimate. "Sarah and I never had children. She wanted them, but between my deployments and then her illness, the timing was never right. If you and I created something together, something that represented both our peoples, I think that would be worth protecting." Lyra felt her eyes fill with the Etherian equivalent of tears, crystalline droplets, that caught candlelight like diamonds. "You would accept a hybrid child, even knowing the complications that might arise. Warriors don't run from complications. We adapt and overcome." He pulled her closer, his warmth enveloping her. "Whatever comes, we face it together. That's what bonded pairs do, right?" That is exactly what bonded pairs do. They fell asleep like that, wrapped around each other, two warriors finally finding peace in shared burdens and mutual understanding. When morning came, Lyra woke first, her advanced senses registering changes in her biochemistry that human technology would not detect for days yet. The ritual of shared essence had done more than create an empathic bond. It had triggered Etherian reproductive biology initiating processes that were already transforming her body at the cellular level. She was pregnant. 6 weeks from this moment, she would give birth to the first human Etherian hybrid child, a living symbol of the bond between two warriors from different worlds. Lyra closed her eyes, focusing her awareness inward with the precision her people had mastered over millennia. There, a tiny spark of combined genetic material, human and Etherian, DNA interweaving in patterns that should not work, but somehow did. Life fragile and determined, already establishing itself in her womb. Through their bond, she felt Garrett's sleeping presence, his dreams peaceful, for perhaps the first time since she had known him. She did not wake him. Not yet. Let him have this moment of rest before their lives changed irrevocably. As Garrett stirred beside her, his arm tightening protectively around her waist, even in sleep, Lyra felt the weight of what was coming. Joy, terror, anticipation. And beneath it all, the absolute certainty that whatever challenges lay ahead, they would face them together. The warrior's bond once forged could not be broken, and neither could the new life that bond had created. 3 days after the ritual of shared essence, Lyra could no longer hide the truth from her empathic awareness. Her body hummed with new life biochemical processes accelerating at rates that would terrify human physicians. The microscopic spark of consciousness within her womb grew stronger each hour, a testament to biological compatibility that medical science had deemed nearly impossible. Garrett sensed the change immediately. His combat instincts, honed through decades of reading subtle environmental shifts, detected something different in Lyra's demeanor. Through their bond, he felt her emotional turbulence, even before conscious thought could name it. "You need to tell me what's happening," he said over breakfast, his tactical assessment mode fully activated. "Your biochemistry has shifted. I can feel it through our connection." Lyra set down her coffee, meeting his gaze with the directness he had taught her to value. "I am pregnant. My body confirmed conception 48 hours ago. The child is developing rapidly according to Etherian gestation patterns. The words hung in the air between them, heavy with implication. Garrett's expressions cycled through shock, wonder, fear, and finally settled into something that looked like grim determination. 6 weeks, he stated, not questioning. That's all the time we have before the child arrives. Yes, and there are complications we must address immediately. She reached across the table, taking his hand. Human-Etherian hybrids are extremely rare, Garrett. Most historical attempts resulted in severe complications or did not survive to term. We need expert medical guidance. Then we get it. Now. Within 2 hours, they sat in Dr. Kael's private clinic, one of the few facilities on Earth equipped to handle interspecies medical complications. The Etherian physician was ancient by human standards, his silver-gray skin marked with elaborate crest patterns that indicated a lifetime of scholarly achievement. His large, amber eyes studied holographic readouts with focused intensity as instruments hummed around Lyra. Remarkable, Doctor. Kael murmured, adjusting displays that showed impossible biological processes unfolding in real time. The genetic integration is proceeding far more smoothly than documented cases would suggest. Your empathic bond appears to be facilitating cellular synchronization at the molecular level. What does that mean in practical terms? Garrett asked, his hand never leaving Lyra's. Dr. Kael turned to face them fully, his expression grave despite the scientific excitement underlying his words. It means the child has a chance, a better chance than historical precedent would indicate. He paused, weighing his next words carefully. But I cannot promise certainty. Hybrid pregnancies place enormous strain on the Etherian mother's body. The accelerated development requires massive energy expenditure, drawing on life force reserves at an unsustainable rate. And the survival rate, Lyra asked, though part of her feared the answer. For the child, approximately 15% based on documented cases. Dr. Kael's crest flattened in the Etherian gesture of delivering difficult news. For the mother, significantly lower when complications arise. The biological stress of supporting hybrid development often proves fatal. The words landed like physical blows. Garrett's grip on Lyra's hand tightened until his knuckles went white, his face hardening into the expression she had come to recognize. The look of a warrior calculating odds and refusing to accept defeat. What do we need to do? He demanded, his voice carrying absolute determination. What resources, what support, what protocols will maximize their chances? Constant monitoring throughout the gestation period. Nutritional supplementation specifically calibrated for hybrid development. And most importantly, Dr. Kael fixed them both with an intense stare. Familial support from both species. Etherian law requires parental approval for hybrid births. Without it, medical facilities are prohibited from providing care beyond basic emergency intervention. Lyra felt her stomach drop. My parents, they must approve. Not just approve, Dr. Kael corrected. They must witness and bless the birth according to traditional protocols. Without their participation, this pregnancy cannot proceed under legal medical supervision. Any complications that arise would leave you without recourse to advanced treatment. Then we contact them, Garrett stated flatly. We make them understand. You do not know my father, Lyra said quietly. Admiral Theron commanded the 7th Fleet during the expansion wars. He is bound by tradition, by military discipline, by codes of honor that predate human civilization. He will see this as reckless endangerment of his bloodline. Then we convince him otherwise. And if we cannot, Garrett's expression softened slightly, his thumb stroking her hand in a gesture of comfort that was becoming instinctive. Then we find another way. Warriors adapt, we overcome. That's what we do. The transmission to Etherian space took 14 hours to establish proper diplomatic channels. When Admiral Theron's face finally materialized in the holographic display, Lyra felt her resolve waver. Her father looked older than she remembered, his once vibrant, violet crest now tinged with silver, his eyes carrying the weight of command decisions that had cost thousands of lives. Daughter, he acknowledged, his tone neutral and controlled. Your emergency communication suggested matters of significant urgency. Father, I must inform you that I have undergone the ritual of shared essence with a human warrior and have conceived a hybrid child. I require your blessing to proceed with medical supervision under Etherian law. The silence that followed could have shattered steel. Admiral Theron's crest darkened through several shades of purple before settling into deep indigo, the color of profound displeasure bordering on fury. You have done what? Beside Theron, another figure moved into the holographic field. Counselor Elysia Lyra's mother possessed the elegant features and pale lavender skin that Lyra had inherited. But where Lyra's crest flowed with expressive emotion, Elysia's remained controlled smooth, the mark of diplomatic training and political necessity. "Show us this human," Elysia commanded, her melodious voice carrying undertones of steel. "The one you have bound yourself to without permission or proper courtship protocols." Garrett moved into the holographic pickup range, his posture unconsciously shifting into military parade rest. To his credit, he met both Etherean stares without flinching, his expression respectful but unintimidated. "Commander Garrett Holloway, United States Marine Corps, retired," he introduced himself with characteristic brevity. "I understand this situation is irregular by your customs. I am prepared to answer any questions you have about my intentions and capabilities." Theron's eyes narrowed and Lyra recognized the analytical assessment her father applied to potential threats. "You are a warrior." "I was, still am in most ways that matter. And you believe yourself worthy to bond with my daughter to create a bloodline mixing human and Etherean heritage. I believe Lyra is worthy of any sacrifice required to protect her and our child. Whether I am worthy of her is a question I ask myself daily." The answer was perfectly calibrated, Lyra realized. Honest enough to satisfy her father's demand for truth, humble enough to avoid appearing arrogant, strong enough to demonstrate commitment. Garrett might not understand Etherean political dynamics, but he understood how warriors evaluated each other. Theron was silent for a long moment, his crest rippling with complex emotions. When he finally spoke, his voice carried the weight of command authority that had led fleets into battle. "We are departing for Earth immediately via temporal compression drive. We will arrive in your planetary system within 8 standard hours. You will present yourselves for formal evaluation." He paused, his gaze fixing on Lyra with paternal intensity that transcended cultural barriers. "Daughter, I hope you understand the magnitude of what you have done. Hybrid births have historically resulted in tragedy. I will not permit you to become another casualty of reckless biological experimentation." The transmission ended before Lyra could respond, leaving them in suddenly oppressive silence. "That went well," Garrett observed dryly. "He is terrified," Lyra translated, understanding the emotions her father would never articulate openly. "Admiral Theron has lost many warriors under his command. The thought of losing his daughter to biological complications he cannot control frightens him more than any enemy fleet ever did. Then we show him there's nothing to fear. We demonstrate preparedness, capability, commitment. You do not understand. My father will demand proof through traditional methods. Words mean nothing to warriors of his generation. Only actions, only demonstrated capability will satisfy him. Then what actions does he require?" Lyra closed her eyes, feeling the weight of cultural traditions that stretched back millennia. The Guardian Trials, ancient tests designed to prove that prospective parents possess the strength, wisdom, and dedication to raise children who will honor the bloodline. Combat Trials, combat strategy sacrifice. 3 tests that evaluate whether we are worthy to bring new life into existence. Her voice dropped to barely above a whisper. "And if we fail, Etherean law requires immediate termination of the pregnancy to prevent dishonor to the bloodline." Garrett's expression hardened into something cold and dangerous. "Then we don't fail." The temporal ship materialized in Earth orbit precisely 8 hours after the transmission ended, its sleek hull shimmering with chronometric distortions that made human observers question their vision. Admiral Theron and Counselor Elysia arrived at Garrett's residence with the formality of a military inspection, their ceremonial robes flowing with embedded technology that humans could not replicate. Theron moved through the house like a commanding officer evaluating defensive positions, his analytical gaze missing nothing. Garrett's weapon collection, his austere living conditions, the memorial photos on the wall, each detail was catalogued, assessed, weighed against unknown standards. Elysia focused on Lyra, her empathic senses probing with maternal concern disguised as diplomatic evaluation. "You look well, daughter. The pregnancy has not yet begun to show physical strain." "It is early, mother." Dr. KL estimates I am barely 1 week into gestation. 1 week, Alicia repeated softly, and already your life has changed irrevocably. I hope you understand what you have sacrificed for this human. I have sacrificed nothing, Lyra countered. I have gained a partner who understands the weight I carry, someone who honors warriors and respects the cost of survival. Pretty words. Words are not enough. Theron turned from his inspection, his full attention now focused on the couple standing before him. Commander Holloway, you claim readiness to protect my daughter and your offspring. I will test that claim through the Guardian trials, the same test my ancestors have administered for 3,000 years. I accept, Garrett said without hesitation. You have not heard the terms. Doesn't matter. If these trials determine whether my child lives or dies, I accept. Just tell me what you need me to do. Theron's crest rippled with something that might have been approval. The trials consist of 3 tests: combat prowess to determine if you possess the physical capability to defend your family, strategic wisdom to determine if you possess the mental capacity to guide your offspring, and sacrifice to determine if you possess the spiritual strength to place their welfare above your own survival. Understood. When do we begin? Wait, Lyra interjected, her crest flaring with sudden understanding of what her father intended. The Guardian trials are meant for the parent who will carry the child. I should be the one facing these tests, not Garrett. Traditionally, yes, Theron agreed, but you are already carrying the burden of gestation. The trials would place additional strain on your system, potentially endangering the pregnancy. Therefore, your mate must stand as your champion, demonstrating worthiness on behalf of you both. That's not fair to him. He does not understand Etherian combat protocols. He has no training in our energy. Weapon systems, he cannot possibly. I can learn, Garrett interrupted quietly, and I will. That's what you need from me, Admiral. You need to know that I can adapt, that I can master unfamiliar systems, that I can protect them when circumstances push beyond my comfort zone. Precisely. Then teach me. You have 6 weeks before this child arrives. Use that time to show me what I need to know. Test me, push me, break me if you have to, but give me the chance to prove I am worthy of them. The room fell silent, the weight of Garrett's words settling over everyone present. Lyra felt tears forming in her eyes, overwhelmed by his absolute commitment. Through their bond, she sensed no hesitation, no doubt. Only fierce determination and willingness to endure whatever was necessary. Elysia moved to stand beside Theron, her hand gently touching his arm. The human speaks with the voice of a true warrior. Perhaps we should grant his request. Theron studied Garrett for a long measuring moment. When he finally nodded, it carried the weight of command decision. Very well. You will train under my supervision for the next 10 days. At the conclusion of that period, you will face the Guardian trials. If you succeed, I will grant my blessing for this pregnancy to proceed with full medical support. If you fail, he did not finish the sentence. He did not need to. There is one additional complication. Theron continued, his gaze shifting to include Lyra. Etherian law requires that both prospective parents participate in the trials. You, daughter, cannot face physical combat in your condition, but you must serve as your mate's second, his tactical support and spiritual anchor during the tests. If either of you fails, both of you face the consequences. We understand, Lyra said, reaching for Garrett's hand. We face this together as bonded pairs should. Then we begin tomorrow at dawn. Theron's expression softened almost imperceptibly, revealing the father beneath the Admiral. I do not wish to see you harmed, Lyra, but I cannot bend tradition for personal sentiment. Too many hybrid attempts have ended in tragedy. You must prove to me that this will be different. The following days blurred into an intensive training regimen that pushed both Lyra and Garrett to their limits. Theron proved to be a demanding instructor, his methods honed through centuries of Etherian military tradition, combined with genuine desire to ensure his daughter's mate possessed necessary capabilities. Energy blade combat required entirely different reflexes than the firearms and close-quarters techniques Garrett had mastered in the Marines. The weapons responded to neural impulses, addending and retracting, based on the wielder's intentions, their cutting edges capable of slicing through most materials with minimal resistance. You move like you expect the weapon to have weight, Theron observed during their 3rd day of training, easily parrying Garrett's attacks with economical precision. Energy blades respond to intention, not force. Guide them, do not muscle them. Garrett adjusted his approach and Lyra watched with pride as he demonstrated the adaptability that had kept him alive through multiple combat deployments. Within hours, his movements became more fluid, more intuitive. By the end of the week, he could maintain defensive patterns that would have impressed junior Etherian warriors. But the training went beyond physical technique. Theron spent hours discussing Etherian philosophy, the cultural context that informed their approach to warfare and honor. Garrett absorbed it all, asking pointed questions that revealed his tactical mind, analyzing information for practical application. You emphasize unit cohesion over individual capability, Garrett observed during one evening session. That's not that different from Marine Corps doctrine. The team survives when everyone supports each other. Indeed, Theron acknowledged, warriors who fight only for personal glory die quickly and pointlessly. Those who fight for something larger than themselves become legends. Lyra noticed her father's manner toward Garrett evolving as training progressed. The initial hostility melted into professional respect, then gradually into something approaching mentorship. Theron pushed Garrett relentlessly, but he also began sharing tactical insights earned through decades of command experience. On the 8th day of training, as Garrett practiced complex blade sequences that would have taken most humans months to master, Theron pulled Lyra aside. "Your human learns quickly," he said, his tone carrying grudging approval. "He possesses discipline and dedication that honor our traditions. I begin to understand why you chose him." "I did not choose him through rational analysis, Father. I recognized in him a kindred spirit, another warrior carrying burdens that threatened to break him. Together we are stronger than either of us could be alone." "That is the essence of true bonding," Theron agreed. "Your mother and I found the same strength in each other during the expansion wars. But Lyra, you must understand the risk you face. Hybrid pregnancies are not merely dangerous, they are often fatal. I cannot bear to lose you the way I lost so many warriors under my command." For the first time, Lyra saw real fear in her father's eyes. Not the controlled wariness of a combat veteran, but the raw terror of a parent facing the potential loss of a child. "I am stronger than you think," she said softly. "And I have Garrett. Our bond gives me strength I did not possess alone. Whatever complications arise, we will face them together. I pray to the ancient stars that you are correct." That evening, after a particularly brutal training session, left Garrett exhausted and aching. He and Lyra sat together on the back porch, watching sunset paint the Colorado mountains in shades of gold and crimson. Through their bond, she felt his physical pain, the deep muscle fatigue that came from pushing his body beyond normal limits. "I need to tell you something," Garrett said quietly. "About Sarah, about how she died." Lyra remained silent, letting him find his words in his own time. "She got pregnant during my last deployment cycle. We'd been trying for years and finally it happened. I was on the other side of the world when she called to tell me the news." His voice roughened with emotion. "I promised her I'd be home before the baby came. I promised nothing would keep me from being there. But something did. Mission complications, combat operations that couldn't be abandoned. By the time I got clearance to leave, I was 3 weeks too late." He stared at the mountains without really seeing them. "She went into labor early. Complications developed. The baby didn't make it, and Sarah hemorrhaged before they could stabilize her. She died alone in a hospital, wondering why her husband wasn't there when she needed him most." Lyra felt tears streaming down her face, sharing his grief through their bond. The weight of his guilt, the crushing sense of having failed at the most fundamental duty of a partner. "That is why you are terrified now," she said gently. "Not of the trials, not of my father, but of history repeating itself. Of losing another woman you loved during childbirth. Every time I think about you in that birthing chamber, I see Sarah's face. I hear the doctors telling me there was nothing they could do, that I arrived too late." He turned to face her, his eyes haunted. "I cannot lose you, Lyra. I cannot survive that again." She took his face in her hands, making him meet her gaze. "You will not lose me. I am not Sarah, and this is not the same situation. You are here now. You are present, prepared, fighting with everything you have to protect us. That is all any warrior can do. What if it's not enough? Then we will have faced it together with honor and courage. That is what warriors do. We do not surrender to fear. We acknowledge the risk and proceed anyway, because some things are worth the cost." Garrett pulled her close, his arms wrapping around her with desperate strength. Through their bond, she felt his determination crystallizing, hardening into something unbreakable. He would not fail again. Whatever the Guardian trials demanded, whatever sacrifices were required, he would pay the price. The next morning, Theron announced that the preparation period was complete. The trials would commence the following day aboard the Etherian vessel, using traditional ceremonial grounds that had witnessed countless generations of prospective parents proving their worthiness. "You have learned well, Commander Holloway," Theron said formally. "But learning in safety and performing under pressure are vastly different. Tomorrow you will face tests designed to push you beyond your limits. Lyra will serve as your second, providing tactical support and spiritual strength. But ultimately, you alone must demonstrate the capability to protect and guide a child." "I understand, Admiral. Do you? The trials are not meant to be survivable by design. They are meant to separate those with true dedication from those whose commitment exists only in words. Many prospective parents have failed. Some have died in the attempt." "Then I'd better not fail." Theron's crest rippled with something that might have been approval or might have been sorrow. "We begin at dawn. Prepare yourselves mentally and spiritually. What you face tomorrow will test everything you are and everything you hope to become." That night, Lyra and Garrett lay tangled together, drawing comfort from physical closeness as they contemplated what the coming day would bring. Through their bond, emotions flowed freely. Fear, determination, love so profound it transcended the boundaries of species and culture. "Whatever happens tomorrow," Garrett whispered against her crest, "I want you to know something. These past weeks with you, learning to carry my grief without being destroyed by it, finding purpose in protecting something precious, this has given me back the will to live. You have given me back my life, Lyra. I will fight with everything I have to give you and our child the future you deserve. And I will stand beside you through every moment," she replied. "My strength is your strength. My courage is your courage. We are bonded now and always. Tomorrow we prove to my father and the universe that love between warriors can transcend any obstacle." Dawn came too quickly, and with it the beginning of trials that would determine whether their child lived or died. As they boarded the Etherian vessel, Lyra felt the weight of tradition pressing down like physical force. Thousands of years of cultural expectations, biological imperatives, and ancestral judgment. But she also felt Garrett's steady presence beside her, his hand warm in hers, his determination blazing through their bond like a beacon in darkness. They were warriors. They had faced death before and survived. Today's trials would be no different. Today they would prove themselves worthy of the life they had created together. Or they would die in the attempt. The ceremonial arena aboard the Etherian vessel existed outside normal spacetime, its walls shimmering with chronometric energy that bent light into impossible geometries. Lyra had read about these ancient combat grounds in historical texts, spaces where warriors proved their worth before gods and ancestors. Standing at the threshold now, feeling the weight of millennia pressing against her consciousness, she understood why so many prospective parents failed these trials. This place was designed to break the unworthy. Admiral Theron stood at the arena's center, his ceremonial combat robes flowing with embedded energy matrices that pulsed in rhythm with his heartbeat. In his hands, twin energy blades hummed to life, their violet edges cutting the air with sounds like distant thunder. Behind him, Counselor Elysia observed from an elevated platform, her expression serene, but her crest betraying maternal anxiety. Dr. Kale had accompanied them, his medical equipment positioned at the arena's edge, ready to intervene if the trials produced injuries beyond Etherian healing capabilities. His presence was both comfort and grim reminder. Warriors sometimes died proving their worth. Garrett stood beside Lyra, his own energy blade held in a ready position that demonstrated the past 10 days of intensive training. Through their empathic bond, she felt his controlled breathing, his tactical mind, analyzing sightlines and combat angles, his absolute determination to succeed regardless of personal cost. No fear, no hesitation, only warrior focus, honed through decades of surviving impossible situations. The first trial. Theron announced, his voice resonating through the arena with ceremonial weight. Tests combat prowess, the ability to defend one's family against physical threats. Commander Holloway, you will face me in ritual combat. Lyra will serve as your tactical anchor, providing guidance through your empathic connection. You must demonstrate not merely skill with weapons, but the capacity to integrate strategy and execution under pressure. Understood, Garrett replied, his tone carrying the same professional calm he had used briefing Marines before combat operations. The trial ends when I determine you have proven adequate capability or when you can no longer continue. There are no points for style, no rewards for mercy. Only competence matters. Theron moved without further warning, his blades singing through air in patterns that would have disemboweled an unprepared opponent. But Garrett had fought too many battles to be caught flat-footed. He deflected the first strike, pivoted away from the second, his movements economical and precise. Lyra closed her eyes, sinking deep into their empathic bond. She could see through Garrett's eyes, feel his muscles responding to neural commands, sense the flow of combat developing around him. Her tactical training activated analyzing Theron's patterns with the clarity of someone who had studied her father's fighting style since childhood. Left high, then sweep low, she projected through their connection. He favors three-strike combinations ending with thrust attacks. Garrett absorbed the information without conscious thought, his body already adapting. When Theron executed the predicted sequence, Garrett was ready, parrying the thrust and countering with a blade strike that forced the Admiral to give ground. Theron's crest rippled with approval, and his attacks intensified. The combat became a flowing dance, violet energy trails marking movements too fast for human eyes to properly track. Garrett was skilled, his Marine Corps training providing foundation that Etherian techniques built upon. But Theron possessed centuries of experience, tactical knowledge accumulated through countless battles. He is testing your adaptability, Lyra sent through their mon, showing you patterns, then changing them. You must anticipate the deviations. The arena became a cathedral of motion and light, two warriors pushing each other toward limits that ordinary combatants never approached. Garrett's body bore the marks of near misses, energy blade strikes that kissed skin without cutting warnings of what full contact would achieve. But he neither slowed nor retreated, pressing forward with relentless determination. Through their bond, Lyra felt his pain, his exhaustion, his absolute refusal to surrender. She fed him strength, using their connection to share her own life force, supporting him the way bonded pairs had supported each other for millennia. This was why the trials required both parents, not to test individuals, but to evaluate their capacity to function as unified force. 15 minutes into the combat, Theron suddenly disengaged, stepping back with blades lowered. Sweat gleamed on his silver-gray skin. His breathing elevated despite Etherian cardiovascular superiority. "Sufficient," he declared. "You have demonstrated adequate combat capability, and more importantly, the ability to integrate tactical guidance under extreme stress. Few humans could match Etherian warriors even with empathic support. You honor your species' military traditions." Garrett deactivated his blade, his legs trembling with exhaustion, but his posture remaining upright through sheer will. "Thank you, Admiral. Your daughter's tactical insight made the difference." "As it should. Warriors who cannot trust their bonded pairs die alone and unmourned." Theron's gaze shifted to Lyra. "You guided him well, daughter. I see your mother's strategic mind in your tactical analysis." Lyra felt warmth flood through her chest, pride and relief mixing with the physical strain of supporting Garrett through their bond. But they had only completed one trial. Two more remained. The second trial. Theron continued after a brief rest period, tests strategic wisdom, the capacity to make command decisions under pressure, to prioritize objectives, to accept necessary sacrifices for mission success. The arena transformed around them, holographic projections materializing to create a complex tactical scenario. Lyra recognized the simulation immediately. A civilian evacuation under hostile fire, multiple extraction points, limited transport capacity, enemy forces converging from three vectors. The scenario had no perfect solution. Someone would die regardless of choices made. "You have 10 minutes to plan," Theron stated. "Commander Holloway will execute your strategy precisely as ordered. Success is measured not by casualties avoided, but by objectives achieved and decision-making rationale. Begin." Lyra's mind shifted into command mode, the training her mother had drilled into her since childhood, activating like muscle memory. She analyzed the tactical situation with cold efficiency, calculating probabilities, weighing assets against liabilities, making the brutal mathematics of combat leadership. "Garrett," she projected through their bond, "I need you to trust me completely. What I am about to order will seem wrong, perhaps even immoral, but it is the only path to mission success. I trust you, came his immediate response. Give me the mission parameters. For the next 8 minutes, Lyra outlined a strategy that sacrificed one extraction point to save two others, that prioritized military-age civilians over elderly and children because they could defend themselves once evacuated, that used decoy transmissions to draw enemy forces toward abandoned objectives. The calculus was ruthless, the kind of decision-making that kept commanders awake at night but saved the maximum number of lives possible. When execution began, Garrett implemented her orders with absolute precision, never questioning, never hesitating, even when the simulated scenario showed civilian casualties mounting at the abandoned extraction point. He trusted her judgment completely, the way Marines trusted squad leaders who had proven themselves in combat. The simulation concluded with 73% of civilians successfully evacuated, acceptable casualties among defensive forces, and enemy momentum broken. Not perfect, not clean, but successful within the constraints of impossible circumstances. Theron studied the results in silence, his crest rippling through complex patterns. Finally, he turned to face Lyra directly. You chose to sacrifice children to save adults who could fight. That decision will haunt you. It already does, Lyra replied quietly. But leadership requires making choices where all options produce pain. I selected the path that preserved the most lives and maintained mission integrity. That is what command demands. And you, Commander Holloway, Theron addressed Garrett, you implemented orders you knew would result in civilian casualties. How do you justify that? I don't justify it. I accept it. Garrett's voice was steady despite the weight of what he had done. In combat, leaders make impossible choices. Subordinates execute those orders with discipline and trust. Second-guessing command decisions during operations gets everyone killed. You trust the officer making strategic calls, or you don't belong in the unit. Alicia spoke for the first time since the trials began, her melodious voice carrying across the arena. You both understand the true cost of leadership, the burden of command that extends beyond personal survival into realms where morality becomes mathematics. That understanding is essential for raising children who must make similar choices. The second trial is complete, Theron confirmed. You have proven strategic competence and the capacity to make decisions that prioritize mission over sentiment. But one trial remains, the most important trial. Before he could elaborate, Lyra gasped, doubling over. A sensation unlike anything she had ever experienced tore through her abdomen. Through their bond, Garrett felt the echo of her pain, his hands immediately supporting her weight. What's happening? He demanded, tactical calm fracturing into raw concern. Dr. Kyle was already moving his instruments, activating as he scanned Lyra's vital signs. His crest flushed through several colors in rapid succession, each shift indicating increasing alarm. The emotional intensity of the trials has triggered premature labor, he announced, his scholarly detachment barely masking underlying panic. She is entering active labor approximately 3 weeks ahead of projected timeline. At this developmental stage, hybrid fetuses have minimal survival probability without intensive intervention. Lyra felt another contraction wrench through her body, her empathic senses suddenly overwhelmed by the consciousness of her unborn child. Alexander. She had already named him in her heart, this impossible fusion of human and Etherian biology, and now she felt his fear, his struggle to survive in a body not yet ready for independent existence. Can you stop the labor? Garrett asked, his voice tight with barely controlled terror. Negative. Once Etherian labor begins, it progresses rapidly. The child will be born within the next 2 to 3 hours, regardless of medical intervention. Dr. KL's instruments hummed as he compiled data. Standard protocols in this situation would be immediate cesarean extraction and intensive incubation support. But even with our most advanced technology's survival probability for a hybrid, this premature is less than 5%. There has to be another option, Garrett insisted. Some procedure, some treatment. There is one possibility. Theron interrupted, his expression grave. An ancient protocol not attempted in over 500 years. The Unity birth ritual. Alicia descended from her observation platform, moving to stand beside her husband. That ritual is forbidden for good reason. The risk to all participants is irrelevant if the alternative is watching our grandchild die. Theron cut her off. The Unity Protocol channels combined life force from multiple participants into supporting premature birth. It creates an empathic matrix that temporarily sustains the child's developing systems while biological processes complete, but it requires perfect synchronization among participants. If any participant's concentration breaks the energy, backlash can kill everyone in the matrix. Another contraction seized Lyra, and through their bond, Garrett felt Alexander's consciousness flickering, struggling against developmental insufficiency. The child was fighting to survive with the same desperate determination his parents carried. That recognition made the decision simple. "We do it," Garrett stated flatly. "Whatever this ritual requires, whatever risks it carries, we do it. I am not losing them." "The third trial," Theron said quietly, "tests sacrifice. The willingness to place your child's welfare above your own survival. Commander Holloway, if you participate in the Unity Protocol, you stake your life on perfect execution. A single moment of lost focus means death for everyone. Can you maintain absolute concentration while watching your mate endure labor? Can you channel life force continuously for hours while your own vitality drains away? Can you face the possibility of dying before ever meeting your child?" "I already told you I accept," Garrett growled. "Stop asking questions and tell me what I need to do." Theron's crest rippled with what might have been pride. "Lyra, the choice ultimately falls to you. This is your body, your life, your decision. Will you risk the Unity Protocol knowing it may kill us all? Or will you choose standard medical intervention and accept the probability of losing your child?" Lyra straightened despite the pain racking her body, meeting her father's gaze with absolute clarity. "I am a warrior. Warriors do not abandon their children because the battle becomes difficult. We do the protocol." "Then we begin immediately." Theron turned to Alicia. "Beloved, I need your strength for this. Will you join the Matrix?" "Did you truly think I would refuse?" Alicia moved to Lyra's side, her hands already glowing with the bioluminescent energy that indicated activated empathic abilities. "She is our daughter. That child is our future. We face this together as we have faced everything since our own bonding." Dr. Kale directed them to positions around Lyra, who had been lowered to the arena floor and on a medical platform that materialized from the ship's systems. Theron positioned himself at her head, Alicia at her right side, Garrett at her left. The configuration created a triangle with Lyra at the center, each participant's hands placed on her body at specific empathic resonance points. The Unity Protocol requires you to channel your life force into supporting both mother and child. Dr. Kale explained his instruments monitoring their vital signs. "You will feel Lyra's pain as your own. You will experience Alexander's struggle to survive. You must maintain concentration, regardless of what you feel, channeling energy steadily and without interruption. Commander Holloway, your human physiology is untested in this application. The strain may kill you before the ritual completes." "Then I'll die having given my child every chance at life," Garrett replied, his hand finding the exact empathic resonance point Dr. Kale had indicated. "That's a better death than most warriors get. Start the ritual." The energy matrix formed slowly at first, golden light, bleeding from Theron and Alicia's hands, mingling with the distinctly different silver-blue radiance that emanated from Garrett's human life force. The three energies swirled together, creating patterns that defied conventional physics as they wrapped around Lyra's body like luminous cocoon. Then the connection solidified, and suddenly Garrett existed in four bodies simultaneously. Through the empathic matrix, he felt Lyra's contractions as crushing pressure in his own abdomen. He experienced Theron's centuries of life force flowing like river current, vast and deep, and controlled with the precision of military discipline. He sensed Alicia's maternal energy, warm and nurturing, providing the emotional foundation that held the matrix stable. And beneath it all, he felt Alexander's tiny consciousness, brilliant and determined, and absolutely refusing to surrender despite impossible odds. The sensation was overwhelming, threatening to shatter Garrett's sense of individual identity. But he had endured worse. He had held dying Marines in his arms while calling in medevacs that arrived too late. He had carried the weight of command decisions that killed subordinates he had sworn to protect. He had watched his wife die by inches, helpless to save her. This pain, this overwhelming empathic connection, was just another mission requiring completion, regardless of personal cost. He channeled his life force into the Matrix, feeling it flow into Lyra and Alexander with purpose beyond anything he had ever experienced. His human energy was different from Etherian vitality, carrying different frequencies, different resonances. But somehow it meshed perfectly with the other contributions, creating harmonic patterns that Dr. Kael's instruments had never recorded. Remarkable, the physician breathed, studying his readouts with scientific wonder. The human life force is amplifying the etherian energies, creating resonance patterns that are actually stabilizing the child's development. The probability of survival is increasing. Lyra screamed, and through the matrix, Garrett felt her agony with perfect clarity. Etherian labor was brutally efficient, compressing processes that took human women hours into concentrated periods of overwhelming intensity. Her body was being reshaped at the cellular level, opening pathways for Alexander's passage, while her empathic abilities exploded outward, seeking support from everyone connected to the matrix. Theron's discipline never wavered, his life force flowing with metronomic consistency. Centuries of combat experience had taught him to maintain focus regardless of distractions. Pain was irrelevant. Exhaustion was temporary. Only the mission mattered. Alicia's voice rose in harmony with Lyra's cries, Etherian birthing songs that resonated through the matrix with frequencies designed to calm laboring mothers and encourage reluctant children. The sound was beautiful and terrible, simultaneously ancient as the species itself. Garrett felt his own vitality draining away, the sustained channeling of life force pushing his human physiology to breaking points it was never designed to approach. His vision dimmed at the edges, his heartbeat becoming irregular. Dr. Kael's instruments screamed warnings that everyone ignored. "Stay with me," Lyra projected through their bond, her consciousness wrapping around his, even as she endured contractions that would have killed lesser beings. "I need you here. Alexander needs you. Do not abandon us now." The words gave Garrett something to anchor himself to. He had failed Sarah, arriving too late, unable to save her or their child. But this time was different. This time he was present, fighting with everything he had, refusing to let death claim anyone he loved. "I am here," he projected back, forcing more life force into the matrix despite his body's screaming protests. "I will always be here." 2 hours passed, then 3. Time became meaningless within the Unity protocol. All participants existing in eternal present where only channeling energy and supporting life mattered. Garrett's human limitations should have killed him within the first hour. By all medical logic, his heart should have stopped. His brain should have shut down. His biological systems should have collapsed. But love proved stronger than biology. Determination transcended physiology. The bond between warriors facing impossible odds could not be broken by mere physical constraints. And then, with a final surge of energy that nearly shattered the matrix completely, Alexander entered the world. His first cry was not merely sound, but empathic shockwave, raw consciousness, announcing itself with power that knocked everyone backward. The Unity protocol collapsed instantly, participants severing connections to avoid being consumed by the infant's uncontrolled abilities. Garrett found himself on his back, staring at the arena ceiling, his body trembling with exhaustion so profound he could not move. Through rapidly fading consciousness, he heard Dr. Kael's shocked exclamation. "Impossible. His empathic abilities are registering at 10 times normal Etherian levels." The Unity protocol did not merely save him, it fundamentally enhanced his capabilities. Somewhere nearby, Lyra was sobbing with relief and joy, her hands cradling a small bundle that radiated life force like miniature star. Garrett wanted to go to them, wanted to hold his son, but his body refused to obey commands. He had given everything, burned through his entire vitality reserves, and now payment came due. "Don't you dare die on me, human," Theron's voice thundered through what remained of their empathic connection. Strong hands gripped Garrett's shoulders, and suddenly Etherian life force flooded into him, Theron reversing the energy flow, giving back what Garrett had sacrificed. "You have proven yourself worthy 1,000 times over. You do not get to die after succeeding." Alicia joined her mate, her own energy flowing into Garrett with maternal determination. Between the two Etherians, they stabilized his failing systems, pulling him back from the edge of death through sheer force of will. When Garrett's vision finally cleared, he found himself staring into Theron's face. The Admiral's expression carried emotions too complex to name, but his words were simple. You passed, warrior. All three trials. Combat capability demonstrated through our duel. Strategic wisdom proven through impossible tactical choices. And sacrifice, you literally gave your life to save your child, trusting us to bring you back. Theron's crest rippled with profound respect. Few Etherians have shown such dedication. You honor not merely your own species, but ours as well. Can I see him? Garrett managed his voice barely whisper. My son, Elysia, helped him sit up, supporting his weight with careful strength. Lyra lay on the medical platform, exhausted but radiant, cradling a tiny form wrapped in ceremonial cloth. When she looked at Garrett, her eyes shone with love and pride and overwhelming relief. Come meet your son, she said softly. Garrett somehow found the strength to cross the distance, settling beside Lyra on the platform. She pulled back the cloth, revealing a face that took his breath away. Alexander possessed the best features of both species. Human bone structure softened by Etherian gray skin that carried subtle lavender undertones beneath ivory complexion and tiny head crests that already showed unique patterns unlike either parent. But his eyes were perfectly human, gray, staring at Garrett with awareness far beyond what any newborn should possess. Through their empathic connection, Garrett felt his son's consciousness brilliant and curious and absolutely determined. This child would never surrender, never accept defeat, never stop fighting for what mattered. Alexander had inherited both his parents' warrior spirits in full measure. Hello, little warrior, Garrett whispered, his finger touching Alexander's tiny hand. I'm your father. I'm going to teach you everything I know about being strong, about honoring your word, about protecting people who can't protect themselves. And your mother is going to teach you about courage, about making impossible choices, about carrying burdens that would break lesser souls. Together, we're going to raise you to be someone both our peoples can be proud of. Alexander's fingers closed around Garrett's with surprising strength, and through the touch, Garrett felt his son's response. Not words, but pure emotion. Recognition. Trust. Love. Dr. Kale had recovered enough to conduct thorough examinations, his instruments humming, as they cataloged Alexander's unprecedented biology. The Unity Protocol created something genuinely new. He announced, academic excitement bleeding through his usual professional detachment. His genetic structure is perfectly stable. His empathic abilities are extraordinarily powerful, and his hybrid vigor suggests he will possess capabilities exceeding either parent species. This child represents evolutionary breakthrough. This child, Theron corrected firmly, represents the future, the proof that our peoples can create something better together than either could achieve alone. He knelt beside the platform, his hand resting on Lyra's shoulder with paternal gentleness. Daughter, I came here prepared to forbid this pregnancy, to force you to choose between your child and your heritage. I was wrong. You have shown me that true strength comes from embracing what we love, not sacrificing it to tradition. Does this mean you approve? Lyra asked, tears streaming down her face. I approve. I celebrate. I formally recognize Alexander as legitimate heir to our bloodline and grant him all rights and privileges of Etherian nobility. Theron's gaze shifted to include Garrett. And I recognize his father as bonded mate to my daughter, worthy to stand among warriors regardless of species origin. Elysia moved to join the tableau, her hand joining Theron's on Lyra's shoulder. We name him Alexander of House Unity, first of a new bloodline that bridges two peoples. May he grow strong in wisdom and courage, honoring the sacrifices his parents made to give him life. The formal blessing carried weight beyond simple words. In Etherian culture, naming ceremonies established a child's place in society, their obligations to community, their connection to ancestral heritage. By creating House Unity, Theron and Elysia were acknowledging that Alexander belonged to something larger than either species alone. House Unity, Garrett repeated, testing the words. I like it. New traditions for new times. Indeed, Theron agreed, though I suspect you will find that some traditions are worth maintaining. For instance, the tradition of rigorous training for children of warrior bloodlines. Garrett managed a tired smile. Admiral, after what we just went through, I think Alexander has already started his training. He fought to survive from his first moment of existence. That's the most important lesson any warrior can learn. 3 months after Alexander's dramatic birth, the world had changed in ways both subtle and profound. The Interstellar Relations Council had established formal programs to support hybrid families, and Lyra stood before a classroom of prospective human-Etherian couples as primary instructor. Alexander was secured in a carrier against her chest, his powerful empathic presence, a constant reminder of what was possible. Integration is not about abandoning your heritage, Lyra told the assembled couples, her voice carrying hard-won authority. It is about creating something new that honors both traditions. You will face challenges, but if you approach your bonds with honesty and willingness to sacrifice, you can build families that transcend species boundaries. At the back of the classroom, Garrett watched his mate with quiet pride. Beside him, Theron observed with paternal satisfaction. "Think we'll see more families like ours?" Garrett asked. "I am certain of it," Theron replied, "and I look forward to training the next generation of warriors who carry both human determination and Etherian honor." That evening, Lyra and Garrett sat on their porch under emerging stars. Alexander stirred in his cradle, his tiny empathic presence washing over them with contentment. Through their bond, emotions flowed between them, two warriors who had found peace not by forgetting their dead, but by honoring them through the life they built. "No regrets?" Garrett asked, pulling her closer. "Not one," Lyra said, settling into his warmth. "We healed each other." Through the window, sounds of their new life drifted across evening air, Etherian and human voices mingling, children playing the future, manifesting in small, beautiful moments. They were warriors still, but now they fought for creation, for unity, for hope. And that was worth every trial they had endured.